Alright, that was a good haul from questing. Returning back to town, it's time to sell some of this junk. Whoa, dude, don't you want to sell some of that stuff? No, need all of it. But you can't even move. I need all of it.
And mind your own business. Yes! Finally able to move. Shit.
Hey old friend, do you have any quests for me? I'm a brand new player, but I'm eager to prove my worth.
Yeah, go tell Therese I wanna slam that ass.
I'm sorry, what?
Go tell Therese I'm gonna Zamboni Nutella off that ass.
Okay, I'm confused. What's happening right now? You want me to tell her you're gonna give her the sexy time up the butt? I don't feel personally comfortable going over and telling her that, man.
Just tell her I gotta lay some pipe up in that ass. But really, do it.
This is a weird ass game, man. But XP is XP. Yo, Therese! Alright team, we're Project Gorgoning today. I wanted to cover this MMO now because y'all know what time it is. We got that holiday season coming up. We got them Steam sales raised the roof. We buy a bunch of games at discount and convince ourselves we gon' play them like we just made the smartest expenditure ever. Like, this was a smart expense. I got it on sale, no harm done. But let's not pretend that that game isn't gonna get added to the backlog of 1,000 other games you bought during the sales. Okay bro, yeah alright. You're fooling everyone.
It's a trap!
I practically go out of my way at this point to be broke when the Steam sales come around so I can give those hundreds of other games in my backlog just a slightly increased chance of actually getting played by me one day. But when I started doing this, I also got a girlfriend around the same time, so I pretty much lost all my free time at the same time I opened up all my free time. Life always has a way of fucking me up the ass. So I think the main reason why people haven't played Project Gorgon is A, they don't really know about it, and B, even if they knew about it, they'll probably wish they didn't after seeing the price tag. Because Project Gorgon sounds pretty freaking awesome, so it's very tempting to want to play it. But your bank account's got you like, nah bro, not happening. The MMO genre is pretty depressing and full of disappointment nowadays, so spending this much on a single MMO is a pretty risky investment. It's funny because despite the fact that Gorgon is buy to play and without a shitty cash shop, I'll look at this entry fee and I'm like, ew, what the fuck? But then I'll play a free MMO and I'll be like, I got in for free, so why not spend some money on the cash shop? I'm still saving, it was free. Yeah, 150% of the time, I've spent way more in free-to-play MMOs than I ever have in a buy-to-play MMO. But I wanted to find out if being turned off by this price tag is holding you back from a really amazing MMO. And of course, the graphics at first, which are a total turnoff, aren't doing it any favors first impressions wise, but if you're old as shit like me, it may harken you back to the days of games like Morrowind, where we didn't really have the luxury of caring how games looked because they all looked pretty bad, but they still pulled you in and immersed you, so why can't this one? Yeah, but for you younger guys, I get the issue. In the age of real-time ray tracing and jiggle physics, I totally get the hesitation. Wow, yes. Oh shit, blacked out. So let's jump into it now and settle this. Is Project Gorgon worth your time despite these initial red flags? We have my standard video layout. The first section is the breakdown where I discuss what kind of MMORPG is, my experience with it, as well as the payment model. Then we're gonna hit the pros and the cons, followed by the neutrals and the final verdict. We're going on an adventure, let's kick that shit off! The breakdown. What is Project Gorgon? It's a PVE-focused MMORPG created by a dev team of primarily 2 people. 2 people for a big MMO? You're shitting me, Goose. It must suck. Oh, far from, child. Project Gorgon currently offers several massive zones, all of which are packed with content, whether it be the world itself that has secrets scattered all over, or the quests, and more importantly, the NPCs that give you those quests that absolutely eclipse NPCs in other MMOs because of their incredibly fun and engaging dialogue. Now, Project Gorgon is not at all an on-rails or theme park experience. It is as off-rail as a game can get, with you having complete freedom over what you do. In a lot of ways, it feels like playing a quality single-player RPG while playing PG, because in so many ways, it packs the depth that you'd expect to see in a single-player RPG into this online world. I'll cover this in detail soon, but to quickly hit some cool points, NPCs are detailed and will react to your actions, and you can build relationships with them to open new dialogue options audience, or you can even piss them off. You can find a surprising amount of lore in this game. There's a lot of mechanics implemented to create an immersive MMO. There are around 150 skills. The leveling system is kind of reminiscent of RuneScape's skill system, except in PG you don't even have a character level or combat level. You just level up each individual skill, but you'll never see a number indicative of a level next to a player's name. In short, Project Gorgon doesn't play like it's in early access a lot of the time because it feels complete, and yet we still have tons of content coming. It's an early access on Steam, and while the final release isn't at all close, there is still tons of content in Project Gorgon where you can easily get hundreds of hours from it in its current state. My experience with the game. I've played Project Gorgon for about 25 hours so far, and while I've only scratched the surface, Project Gorgon does a really good job of showing off all that it offers pretty fast. I was gonna wait till the 50-hour mark to review the game, but honestly, I already just have so much to say that I was like, screw it, I'm gonna start talking about this. So in my time playing, I completed a ton of quests, did a few dungeon-style zones, including a group dungeon zone that was packed with really tough enemies. I've primarily stayed in a zone called soooo, I think it's pronounced, because there is so much shit to do here, but I've also done some content in neighboring zones like Eltabil. Once again, probably got the pronunciation wrong, you can shit on me in the comments. I've also spent a lot of time leveling up other skills I've unlocked, like fishing, cooking, alchemy, meditation, dyeing, because that's a skill, fire magic, necromancy, lore, foraging, mycology, and so on, because the amount of skills is seemingly never ending. I've tried to touch on every single new avenue of gameplay I've encountered, and have spent hours outside of the game looking into content. And now we're at the payment options. It's buy to play. That's it. Seriously, it's amazing. Alright guys, it's time for the pros. If you're enjoying the video so far, you can click the red button. It'd be kinda cool, I don't know. Pro numero uno. No cash shop, that's it. Pack your shit up, boys, that's the video. Have a good day, everybody. Just kidding, you're stuck with me for like another 20 minutes. Feels bad, man.
It felt even worse when they realized it was 37 minutes.
No cash shop is first of all unheard of for MMOs nowadays, and it's even more important here because of two reasons. The first being, if they haven't implemented it by now, they probably never will, because while Project Gorgon has a loyal following, that following isn't very big. There aren't a crazy amount of players. So that means they're not interested in cashing in on who is playing or sticking around long term, despite having a relatively small fan base. It also tells me that this game is a passion project by the devs. They're not willing to compromise their vision or the quality of their product just to start raking in some extra side cash. This game is buy to play, and once you get it, you have access to the full game without worrying about all the extra expenses it'll try to shove down your throat like other MMOs. The second pro, this game has got hilarious dialogue, some of the wittiest I've ever seen in a game ever. Like almost every NPC has the potential of making you laugh, unless you're made of stone. Are you made of stone? No? Good, you'll laugh, don't worry. I literally got a quest from a dude who wanted me to run over to his friend, who is a female, and he wanted me to tell her that she had better meet him at his place tonight so he can clap them cheeks. What am I seeing right now? Okay, it's time to go to sleep. What? This game is as no-holds-barred as MMO dialogue gets. Age of Conan has butt-ass naked people running around, and even they couldn't achieve such a level of sexual mastery to the dialogue. I'm telling you, man, someone on this dev team got blue-balled real bad one day and just used this game as their outlet for a bunch of their horny 50 Shades of Grey level of thoughts, and Project Gorgon is all the better for it. Going from another MMO's NPCs to Project Gorgon's is like when you went from the base game of Oblivion to the Shivering Isles.
You got some skooma, eh?
You remember how all those NPCs were fucking weirdos and you just assumed someone flew by and dropped a skooma nuke on all of them? Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what Gorgon's NPCs are like. But it's not just all humor. Gorgon's dialogue hits both ends of the spectrum by also having really dark subject matter. For instance, I guess there's some beefing going on between elves and men, and you'll be able to pick this up when you talk to a guy who has borderline hilarious dialogue, if not for the fact that he's totally racist towards elves. You'll kind of like be laughing to yourself while saying in your head, this is not okay, why am I laughing? Shit, I'm a bad person. Gorgon as a whole just feels like it was made by the sassiest people ever, and I love it. It's nice to play a game that's so brash and cheeky without overdoing it. If you're someone who plays MMOs for the progression and rushes through quest giver dialogue, just give it a chance here. I promise you guys you won't regret taking the time to read this stuff. Because of this awesome dialogue, the quests feel full of purpose. It's good incentive to go out and do the quest because aside from getting the typical stuff like XP and increasing your favor with the NPC, you're also just eager to hear what these characters have to say next when you return with the objective complete. And even more incentive is you'll find out in some cases upon doing the quest, it's not just the typical run here, kill this, or go collect this. There might be some random surprise the quest throws at you, an event that takes place that you didn't expect. And what's even better, quests don't feel like the main purpose of the gameplay. They feel like a secondary or side task. The best thing they do is kind of give you an incentive to wander the map and check out all the corners of it even more, but quests are not the focus of your journey in Project Gorgon versus other MMOs, despite there being plenty of quests available. And another awesome thing I notice about the quests is, so far I've completed a bunch of them, and each quest seems to have a purpose beyond just creating immersion. They all want you to learn something from them. Almost every time I've read a quest objective, I've been thinking, okay, how do I do that? How do I kill this monster that has kicked my butt so far? How do I kill these deer when they all run away too fast to catch? How do I find this race called the Myconians, which seem to only be reachable by a portal in the form of a large mushroom? In other MMOs, the quests feel like fetch quests, because that's all there really is to do outside of managing your character a bit until endgame. In Project Gorgon, none of the quests feel like fetch quests, because there's so many other things you're doing while finding the objective, as well as doing the objective, but you could be progressing all sorts of skills or goals and collecting tons of random items you may need while just also happening to complete these objectives. Whereas other MMOs, you go out to quest, and that's all there really is to do aside from the minor XP gains, from monster kills, and the possible crafting ingredient to be found along the way. I love how Gorgon doesn't ever feel like it's trying to get you to prioritize one avenue of gameplay over another, and yet it's a game where you'll always be making progress and have something to do. And on that note, next pro, you gain XP for everything. You want to teleport? Here's some XP. Bury the body of a creature you just shanked in the face? Here's a little XP. Take that shit down the gullet like your morning multivitamin. Want to run around a little bit? Burn some calories? XP, eat it! It's calorie free. You even get XP for dying. You can level up in dying. As you guys can imagine, this is one of my highest level skills. This game kicks my shit in! And since you gain XP from everything, you never feel like you're wasting time. And Project Gorgon doesn't have an overall character level, as I mentioned. You just gain levels in different skills, and by this fact alone, it changes how you play the game versus the typical MMO. There's no players running around with the level 50 next to their name, so you don't feel that subtle pressure to keep up with the level grind, because most MMOs have that overall character level that totally defines the experience. But PG does not, and as a result, you feel you are completely in control of your character's life and whatever you want to do in this world. Next pro, the NPCs in this world will react to your actions. For instance, I went into town and killed a pig, and then a chicken. Man's gotta eat! But some people weren't very understanding of that. This action actually pissed a lot of NPCs around me off, and I lost favor with some of them. Earning favor with NPCs is important because every friendly NPC has something to offer you, and a lot of the time they will hold back on these offerings unless you have a good enough relationship with them, aka lots of favor, aka doing favors for them, giving them gifts, all the stuff. That's my forte because I do that shit in real life for my boo anyways. Shout out to you, boo boo, love you. So losing favor with these characters is less than ideal. The fact that this NPC reactivity mechanic exists separates Project Gorgon in a big way from other MMOs, where 90% of the time NPCs feel like they're just plopped down as these cardboard constructed entities that only have a purpose at a very specific point in the game or when you get a quest. Otherwise they'll just be staring straight ahead blankly like they just got a text from their mommy saying she saw their search history and they're waiting for the ass whooping they're gonna get when they get home. Personal experience? Maybe, 100%. And I know for a fact I looked like these guys when I got that call. Relationships with NPCs are layered, so pretty much if you get to a certain level of favor with one of them, they start talking to you about more things, different things than what they would have talked to you about in the past when they had less favor for you. This pro ties into one of my greatest praises of Project Gorgon, which is how it makes you feel like you're playing a high-quality single-player RPG a lot of the time. It plays like it has the depth of a single-player RPG, but with the added perks of an MMO. Single-player RPGs are made to cater completely around the player. The world responds to you, the NPCs develop relationships, for better or worse, with you. You're the only player in this game world, so this game world is built all around you. And you're given choices for you to choose the kind of character you want to have, if not for an in-game morality mechanic. And in contrast to this, MMOs are far less personal and far more on rails generally, with the game largely boiling down to a progression grind. A path thousands of players will follow as well, with little variation to how this task is accomplished. This is where Project Gorgon shakes things up. It says, why does an MMO need to feel like an MMO? Why can't an MMO hit those check marks that a single-player RPG does, while still offering the freedom to explore the world with others and take on challenges together? Project Gorgon is packed with depth both in how the game world reacts to you, as well as how you can interact with it and its players, because this game walks a fine line between making your experience feel pretty personal with how NPCs react to you and the things you do, as well as some interesting choices you get to make, while also satisfying that social itch by putting you in a world that isn't easy to tackle alone, and where the community's help will greatly benefit you. Next pro, Project Gorgon's world, Alhearth, has been so full of mystery, full of random and interesting bits that bring out the completionist in me and make me want to explore every corner of every region. And the whole map is covered by Fog of War until you explore it. It's a lot like in Guild Wars 1 how the map is covered in Fog of War, and you can work on your cartography percentage for a dope title. I don't know if there's a title for exploration in Project Gorgon, but you do gain cartography XP. And it's a cool feature not having the world immediately exposed to us, because it makes you want to find out what your surroundings are. It promotes exploration, which can lead to cool things, like exploring a pretty standard looking sewer full of ugly creatures just to accidentally stumble upon a cool looking crypt, which is packed with even more creepy massive creatures. There are just a lot of unique features of Project Gorgon that you don't see in other MMOs, like ways of interacting with the world and things to do that drive your character's progression. And these mechanics are ones I've never seen before. For instance, before you log off, you can hang out with an NPC where, if you stay offline for the specified amount of time, you log back into rewards and they give you a boost in favor for hanging with that NPC. Some NPCs get more out of hanging out than others. All I'm gonna say, sex, they want the sex from me. But like the intro, XP is XP, you know what I mean? Yeah, he doesn't actually give you any XP for taking it up the butt for 4 hours. Kind of disappointing. You can find a hilarious painting and critique it in your own hilarious way to get some lore XP out of it. You can hire a merchant and their booth so you'll be able to open your own store in town that other players can buy from. You can interact with things in the world that may give you a really stupid but funny buff or debuff. You can even become an alcoholic if you drink too much. And last example, I promise, you can learn a word of power, which reminds me of a shout in Skyrim, where you can type a really weird looking word into chat and then it casts a spell that does something cool. And there is like so much humor and randomness injected into this world that you'll be laughing your tits off. If you have big titties, it'll take you longer, but you'll still laugh them off. It'll be like, haha, oh, there goes a tit. And the game rewards you for interacting with it and exploring the world. You can level up lore. It's like rewarding you for making the effort to immerse yourself. I love it. Keep rewarding my spoiled ass. I feel like the devs get drunk every time they work on this game because they add some of the goofiest shit I've ever encountered in any game ever. You can transform yourself into a bat that can fly, but you have to teach yourself English again, and until you do, whenever you type into the chat, it'll come out completely weird, like half of your words will be nee or ree. I don't really know how to make the noise. Or if you're transformed into a cow, when you try to communicate half the time, you'll be saying meow. That one I know. I don't know why I'm actually doing a sound effect with it. It just sounds more authentic, I guess. Like, it's literally a skill where if you aren't a high enough level in said skill, you'll type in chat and it'll come out as like garbled sentences. Case in point, this poor bastard trying to tell me something and I'm just like, okay dude, someone stayed on the PC too long and his wife is just like smashing his face into his keyboard, but no, he literally just couldn't talk to me because he doesn't have a high enough skill to. And here's a player that's a cow that's having equally as much problems talking to me. If players start playing an instrument near NPCs, the NPCs will just break out and start dancing. You might make it all the way through a very hard dungeon and slay the big bad boss at the end of it just to have a dialogue with him, and he actually sounds like a really cool dude, and he didn't even want to be in that dungeon. Oh, and he'll teach you necromancy. It's a whole thing. You know, come to think of it, it's a she. The boss was a she. I know you lore buffs are about to break out the pitchforks on that, so there we go. I know I keep going on about all this unique stuff, but it's important you guys understand just how much they've tried to incorporate into this game to pull you guys in and give you something completely fresh. Project Gorgon is just weird, it's fun, it's awesome. I can't say enough about how quirky and witty everything in Project Gorgon is. The devs are masters of dialogue, and I just gave you like a very tiny idea of the scope of this game's uniqueness. Gorgon is the most creative and inspired game I've played in a long time. Okay, we gotta talk about this community. Bunch of weirdos. Way too nice, makes me feel like an asshole every time I log in. Especially because I'm always asking for help, and every single time there's like 3 people that are all like, hey man, I got you bro, on my way. And I'm looking at that like, what does that even mean? I'm a guy that comes from COD, okay?
I'm a pussy that use riot shield.
Nice chatter? Not a thing. See, I'm that guy that sees other people ask for help in game and I'm like, watch no one answer him. Lol. Yeah, I say lol. It's evidently one of my many problems, but this game's got me at risk of becoming a better man. It's a terrifying feeling. Nah, I'll just jump into a COD lobby later and be back to normal.
Look at my score. Look at my score. I'm shit and I'm still happy.
Like in Project Gorgon, I'll be like, oh, thank you so much, kind sir. Blessings upon your soul. Then I'll hop over to COD and be like, taste my nuts on your face. But wow, yeah, this is the most helpful community I've ever met. Every single question I've asked, every single one, is met with the most kind and helpful of responses. And every single time I've asked for help with something in this game, players partied up with me seconds later to help me out. So if you guys are like me and hesitant about the learning curve of a new MMO, don't be afraid, child, because literally every single one of these people gives me hope for humanity, bro. Just me asking if Gorgon has PvP prompted a really friendly conversation between a bunch of players in global chat who began civilly discussing how it would be cool or uncool if there was PvP. Damn near slapped myself to see if this level of cordiality was for real. And the game itself also does its part to bring the community together in the form of community events and the nature of the gameplay, with the lack of handholding. Project Gorgon isn't hard to the point where you don't know where to start, but it is complex enough that while you're on your journey, you'll need to be asking questions and requesting help. And there are a lot of resources online as well, considering how small of an MMO this is. There are definitely some things you can't find online right now, but the Project Gorgon wiki is actually packed full of a lot more info than I expected. Not that you even need it though, because the Discord and the in-game chat, they got your back, girl. Next pro, nothing in this game is just implemented as filler. Every item, every NPC, every skill out of the over 150 available, and every crafting profession has something to offer you. Everything you can find can be used effectively. Or, okay, maybe like 99.2% of things. Nothing is wasted in Project Gorgon. Everything you find and do will be useful in some way, towards some craft or skill, or it will lend aid to some NPC. Okay, there's like the very odd item that's kinda just for selling off for money, but those are like extremely rare. As rare as seeing a UFO. Or maybe even more rare, because, I mean, there have been reportings of UFO sightings popping up. I'm just saying, I don't know. Now, for a guy like me that has such bad inventory management skills, put me in a game like this where everything has value. Imagine the mental breakdowns I have. Like, I'm positive half my playtime in every MMO is spent sorting through my completely full inventory bags. I'll go into a raid and be like dropping my shit practically, leaving a trail of breadcrumbs in the form of armor and potions. Because my inventory fills up and I'll be wanting to pick up the monster drops, and then of course some asshole in the raid always has to be like, yo, who didn't clean their inventory before the raid? Hey, listen, shut the fuck up! Inventory management is a full-time job! I should probably just quit Project Gorgon. Everything's useful, I can't do that. We're almost done the pros, couple more. The combat is actually engaging despite how it may look, because you never feel like any opponent can be steamrolled until you've significantly outleveled them. And this makes you feel more involved with your character, because character progression feels more earned and satisfying. You know how in games like Black Desert Online, they make you feel like a complete badass right from the start, where you practically cause a mosh pit every time you fight enemies and you always come out as top mosher because you practically just murdered an entire generation of monsters? Those games feel epic at the start when you're just mowing down hordes of enemies with flashy attacks, but I actually prefer Gorgon's slower paced style of combat because it feels like you're with your character at the origin of their story, the point where they suck. And then over time you get better and better, and it's through trial and error, so when you get way far into the game, you feel like you truly understand your character and the way to play them. In a lot of these more glamorous MMOs that pretty much have all enemies there as sort of cannon fodder until you get to the endgame, I always feel a lot more detached from that sort of experience because when I finally do get to the tougher endgame monsters, it feels like I don't even know how to properly play my character despite playing them through all of the leveling process. Because everything before was easy and now it's hard, but I'm not used to hard.
That's what she said.
Gorgon always feels pretty hard. You'll be managing your power, which allows you to use any skills for any weapon type, and can deplete pretty fast if you're not careful. Your metabolism, which allows you to ingest potions and food, but only to a certain extent before it needs to regenerate. And then there's the different combat builds, which are not changeable while in combat. So if you're about to get into a tough situation, having the right skill setup, as well as the right primary and secondary weapon setup, is really essential. And top this off with the monsters having varying skills and strengths and weaknesses, so it never feels like you're just fighting monsters the exact same way. Strategy for tougher fights is needed. You get into the routine of making sure you're well equipped, and it'll keep you on your feet in dungeons and caves, as opposed to letting you smash your way through in minutes effortlessly and lazily. The result is, you won't hit the toughest content and just be like horribly unprepared, because Project Gorgon's leveling journey will prepare you for it. Last pro, the dev team, 2 people. The updates, very frequent. I mean, sure, there's the odd time these devs contract work out to other people, but the majority of this game is their work, and holy crap do they pour time into making this game. Updates are frequent, and you can see that on the Steam page. And I think it's worth noting that in a lot of ways, Project Gorgon feels like more of a complete MMO in its current state than other MMOs that are fully launched. I think I covered this pretty well just in the whole body of this pro section, but the point is, especially for MMOs, frequent updates are important, and just because this is a tiny dev team, that doesn't mean the progress of the game is suffering. They are still fully working on this thing. Okay, we've left the Shire and we're in the swamps. We're at the cons. Number 1, the bugs or incomplete features as a result of being early access are pretty evident. The game is just noticeably unrefined in a lot of ways, like fishing currently involves literally jumping into lakes and grabbing the fish underwater with your hands. But I will say this, the fishing in Gorgon has you a lot more involved than in other MMOs. But regardless, it's a bit of an odd look right now. When you click on a creature and their health window pops up, there's still a black icon next to their health bar where the image of the creature should be. But when you hover your mouse over it, it does say they'll be adding it. Monsters can chase you in the water, like tigers will literally be walking along the ground in a huge lake while chasing you. Homes in towns can be completely empty or have random pieces of furniture, but be empty aside from that. And it's not common, but it is a reminder that this game is not fully completed yet. And from a distance, both NPCs and real players will be in a static T-pose unless you get closer to them, even if they are running. So it'll just be like a static floating T-pose character. But honestly, knowing the silly shit that they've put into this game, watch that just end up being a spell you can cast where you run around like that. But yeah, that's probably not, it's definitely something they're gonna fix. There's also some weird graphical issues I'll occasionally get, one of the weirder ones being how the sun looks extremely blown out on Ultra graphics. But it looks better, weirdly, on the Great graphics setting, which is, I think, 2 tiers below Ultra. And there's also this odd and noticeable, like, horizon line that goes around your character and very sharply divides the lighting. These are just a few of the issues off the top of my head, but overall, for how big this game is, considering the stage of development it's at, and with how many features have already been crammed into this game, there aren't even close to as many bugs as I expected in Project Gorgon. It's important I tell you that there are a handful of them, but none of them have been game-breaking or problematic in terms of just playing the game. And I'd say a ton of Project Gorgon's gameplay already feels very polished, to the point where you'd assume this game is close to completion. Of course, that's not the case, because the devs still have a huge roadmap of stuff they want to implement, but it's clear they're not just focusing on that roadmap as opposed to fixing the experience that's already available. Next con, the PvPers are pretty much shit out of luck in Project Gorgon. There's not really any PvP outside of there being a couple of test arenas and what is called a PvP juice, which enables PvP for you, but to actually engage in it with someone else, they have to drink the potion too. But aside from that, the devs have made it very clear that Project Gorgon never will be a PvP-focused game. Because there are so many skills available, the devs said they don't have time or resources to make a balanced PvP experience. So currently, and possibly for the foreseeable future, the PvP isn't going to grow at all, especially when they have emphasized the point of the game is PvE, and they have a lot to do just to get that to where they want it to be. Next up, the optimization doesn't seem too great yet. I primarily play Project Gorgon on my laptop, an Acer Predator Helios 300. It's got an i7-9750H processor, a 1660 Ti graphics card, and 16 gigs of RAM. I actually don't know anything about computers, but the price tag tells me it's good. So I'm running the new COD Modern Warfare, for instance, with about 55 FPS on high settings. Now, as you can see from these two screenshots, there is a significant difference between COD's graphics and Project Project Gorgons. So the fact that I'm averaging only 35 FPS on the great graphics preset, not even maxed graphics, that's a head scratcher. And as you can imagine, it gets even worse on ultra settings. And I think the difference between COD and Project Gorgon is pretty telling. Point is, you might have a computer with decent specs, and Gorgon might still have some issues with it, but I'm sure these will be ironed out down the line. Next con, I haven't seen any crazy cool gear yet. Like a gear that makes me stop and go, oh shit, that's some nice gear! Because trust me, when I see people with cool gear in MMOs, I do that. And then I creepily message them being like, hey, how are you? How's your wife and daughter? And they'll be like, how'd you know I have a daughter? And I'll be like, I didn't. So listen, where'd you get your gear? But I haven't done that in Gorgon yet. Now, gear is a huge reason why I'm attracted to MMOs for the same reason I'm attracted to titles. Vanity. I love showing my stuff off and looking for the best I can. It's why I hold on to a ridiculous number of armor sets in RuneScape and LOTRO, even if they're not the best gear you can get in game. But they're expensive and they look sick. Unfortunately, no gear has popped out to me yet where I pretty much set a goal to go obtain it. This is probably a personal preference, so you guys may feel totally different, but my opinion is the gear is currently underwhelming visually. Now this next con is pretty important. If you're looking for a more hardcore MMO experience, it doesn't sound like this game will cater to you just yet. I'm gonna quote Beta Noctis on this one since he gave me a pretty detailed answer to the state of endgame. This guy's awesome, by the way. He's handling a lot of the info for the wiki as well. Anyways, here we go. He says, right now the level cap on skills is at 80, plus bonus levels from other skills, while actual endgame content will be past 100. Right now, what people consider endgame depends on their personal goals in game. The level 80 zone has not seen a dungeon yet, but we know that a level 80 dungeon is being worked on. This area has a mix of mobs solo players can handle and some group monsters. From my observations, you have a few different groups. Players focused on crafting skills and maintaining player shops, players focused on getting equipment sets to maximize their damage output for either group or solo play, players focused on leveling every skill possible, players focused on distributing alcohol and spreading poetry, or people aiming to expand their guilds. Yaffe, another Discord mod, chimed in as well, saying endgame content right now is a level 70 dungeon and level 80 elite packs meant for 6 players. I think by packs he means like a boss and his ads. Moral of this point is, the endgame in Project Gorgon is not where the hardcore raiders or group content guys will probably want it to be yet, but there is some tougher content currently in game for the current high skilled guys, and there's a lot more to come. Alright, we at the neutrals. Number 1, the world is sometimes beautiful and sometimes ugly. Alharth is as capable of evoking a sense of wonder as it is making you feel underwhelmed. Serbiul, one of the earlier zones, undergoes a regular fluctuation of looking beautiful and then not so beautiful. Serbiul Hills has a similar problem, where it feels like the time of day plays a huge part in how nice the world looks. At times, Project Gorgon presents you with really immersive and almost cinematic levels of lighting, with vast mountain ranges in the distance and volumetric rays shooting across your screen. And then there's the Serbiul Keep that looks so pretty at night, creating this cozy kind of atmosphere with vibrant lighting to help you forget about the ass whooping you get outside of the walls. In a lot of ways, Project Gorgon is very visually charming as well. All the characters look pretty cool, even if I'm not a fan of all the gear. It reminds me of Neverwinter Nights 2 in terms of presentation a lot of the time. But on the flip side, sometimes you'll suddenly see a different side to Serbiul where it actually looks butt-ass ugly, and those mountain ranges look like a third grader painted them, and the lighting looks flat and dull. And then there's Altabul. I am like not getting these pronunciations down at all. But Altabul is the definition of flat lighting. Honestly, compared to Serbiul, I just found Altabul to look completely uninspired, like they kind of rush made this zone and are planning on fixing it up later. And the latest zone I explored, called Sunvale, it's got this lush desert kind of look. I know that probably doesn't make sense, but anyways, as you can see here, it looks interesting, but I feel like the lower quality graphics are far more noticeable in this region, whereas Serbiul does a good job of masking that. The dungeons are also a bit hit and miss so far. I loved the look of the Serbiul crypt, but the Goblin Dungeon's textures looked blotchy. I know there's a million other priorities and it's a small team, but hopefully when those tasks start clearing up a bit a ways down the line, we can see a bit of an overhaul to some of this stuff. We're almost at the final verdict, but this is something I personally love and you may not. There are no quest markers. Gorgon goes a bit old school with the questing, where you actually have to figure out how to find objectives without a marker just being dropped on your map. Personally, I love this because, like I said, questing isn't the focus in Project Gorgon, so all that time you spend trying to figure out where the quest is, you'll probably be progressing in some other ways anyways. There is a skill you'll unlock that'll help you kind of find quest objectives if they're nearby, but I've tried using it a few times without any success, so couldn't tell you how good it is. Alright, we're at the final verdict. Project Gorgon is in early access, and yet it's so well done that it already feels like a full package. I wasn't expecting big things from PG, especially because as much as I try not to be that guy that judges a book by his cover, I am that guy. And being that guy never goes well, because I play plenty of beautiful looking games that are total ass crack, and skip out on games that aren't. A great analogy for Project Gorgon is, you know those hole-in-the-wall restaurants? They're run down, they look shitty on the outside, but oh my gosh, they make the best food ever. And then there's the nice-ass, attractive-looking chain restaurants that get complaints out the ass and their food is super hit and miss. Yeah, Project Gorgon is the hole-in-the-wall restaurant. You just need to walk in that door and get some good-ass food. Because this game has so much to offer an MMO player. You get to experience an MMORPG that actually values the RPG part of that abbreviation, more than pretty much any other PVE-based MMORPG I've played. It's like you're playing a quality single-player game with the luxury of the best systems of an MMO implemented, where you get to enjoy the world with other players. Sure, there is certainly things I would like to see fixed, and I really want to hear more on what and when they'll be implementing more tough content for accommodating more hardcore players, but in the meantime, holy crap, there is just so much to enjoy in Project Gorgon, and you can enjoy all of it once you buy it. That is the first and final fee. In my opinion, yes, PG is worth the cost of entry. If you can do without PvP and want to experience a hilariously detailed, rich, and immersive MMO, look no further than Project Gorgon. Alright, we're at the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me if you made it this far. And I'd also love to hear if you guys want me to play certain MMOs or, you know, just games in general. I love getting some feedback on that. So this holiday season's coming up and there's like a lot of games that'll be going on sale. So if there's a certain one that you kind of want a verdict on, just let me know and I'll probably try to check it out. Alright, if you liked the video, hit that like button. It really helps a small channel like mine, and hit that subscribe button. Stick around with me. We've got a lot of hype videos coming up. Alright, take care, guys.